philosophy, and maybe a guide to a better life, who knows.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be looking at Luc Ferry's A Brief History of Thought today.
Okay.
And, you might be thinking, what does philosophy have to do with living well?
Right.
But trust me, Ferry makes a really compelling case that it's like packed with this practical wisdom.
He does, yeah. He argues that while religions offer salvation through faith, philosophy kind of equips us to face those challenges head on.
Uh-huh.
Using reason and understanding. It's like having a mental toolkit, right?
Okay.
Handed down through generations, filled with strategies for dealing with, like everything.
Yeah.
Fear, mortality, happiness, and purpose.
A philosophical toolkit.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So how does this toolkit actually work? Like, does philosophy offer, concrete solutions to life's problems?
Well, not exactly solutions, but more like frameworks for thinking. Ferry breaks down philosophy into 3 interconnected dimensions. First, there's theory, understanding the world, around us through observation and sciences.
Right.
Building a solid foundation of knowledge about the universe, our place within it.
So kind of like a scientific lens for understanding reality.
Yeah.
Okay, what's the next dimension?
Next comes ethics, the realm of how we interact with others and establish principles for moral conduct.
Oh.
Defining right and wrong, fostering compassion and justice,
Right.
building a society that reflects those values.
Okay. So theory helps us to understand the world. Ethics guides our actions within that world.
Yeah.
What's the third piece of this philosophical puzzle?
The third dimension is what Ferry calls salvation, or wisdom.
Okay.
This dimension's all about achieving inner peace and freedom from fear.
Mm-hmm.
It's about cultivating a mindset that allows us to face life's, inevitable challenges with courage, with resilience,
Right.
even in the face of our own mortality.
This is what I find so fascinating about philosophy. It's not just these abstract ideas, right?
Yeah.
It's about finding ways to live better, more fulfilling lives. So are you saying that philosophy can provide a path to a type of salvation, even without those religious beliefs?
Precisely. And to illustrate this, Ferry takes us back to ancient Greece,
Okay.
a period often referred to as the Greek miracle in the history of thought.
Why Greece? What was so special about ancient Greece that sparked this philosophical revolution? Was it just one brilliant mind or something?
Not at all. It was a confluence of factors.
Oh.
The rise of democracy in Athens
Uh-huh.
fostered a culture of open debate, critical thinking. Imagine a society where challenging those traditional beliefs, and exploring new ideas, that was encouraged.
Right.
That's the environment that allowed philosophy to flourish.
So it was this perfect storm of social and intellectual freedom
Exactly.
that paved the way for these groundbreaking ideas. Okay.
And within this dynamic environment, different schools of thought arose,
Yeah.
each with their own unique perspectives on, life, death, and everything in between.
Right.
One of the most influential schools was Stoicism, known for its emphasis on reason, virtue, and resilience.
Ah, the Stoics. I've heard of them. So what was their approach to living a good life? Did they have a specific tool in that philosophical toolkit we were talking about earlier?
They did. The Stoics believed in a harmonious and divinely ordered system they called the cosmos.
Okay.
They saw the universe as this perfectly rational entity where, everything has its place and purpose.
So for the Stoics, finding peace meant aligning yourself with this cosmic order.
Yes, finding your place within this grand rational framework.
Okay.
And they believed this connection could be achieved through theoria.
Theoria?
Yeah, which involves, deep contemplation of the natural world.
Okay.
By observing the laws of nature, understanding our place within that larger system. They believed we could find tranquility and acceptance.
This is very contemplative, almost meditative.
Right.
But how did this translate into practical everyday living?
Yeah.
How did the Stoics deal with the very real challenges of life, like injustice or suffering or even the fear of death? Did they just ignore them?
Not at all. They had a very specific way of approaching them.
Okay.
The Stoics believed that even seemingly negative events were part of this larger cosmic order.
Yeah.
Take Marcus Aurelius, for example, the Roman emperor,
Right.
Stoic philosopher.
Yeah.
He famously wrote, "All that comes to pass with justice."
Wow, that's quite a statement.
Yeah.
So even in the face of hardship, the Stoics saw a kind of inherent justice in the workings of the universe.
Yes.
Did this mean they just accepted whatever happened without taking action to, like, change things?
No, it wasn't about passivity.
Right.
It was more about understanding that, while you can't control external events,
Right.
you can control your own reactions and judgments. They believed in fulfilling their duties within society, but without becoming, overly attached to specific outcomes.
That's fascinating. So it's about focusing on what you can control,
Ah.
your own, like, inner world, rather than getting swept up in the chaos of those external circumstances. Is that what they meant by, like, living in harmony with nature?
That's a great connection you've made there.
Okay.
Living in harmony with nature was a central tenet of Stoicism.
Right. Yeah.
For them, nature wasn't just the physical world.
Yeah.
It was a model for moral and ethical behavior. They believed that observing nature's laws and cycles, it could teach us valuable lessons about balance,
Right.
acceptance,
Yeah.
and the interconnectedness of all things.
So they saw nature as a source of wisdom and guidance, not just something to be, like, conquered or exploited.
Yes, precisely. And this
Partner-
idea extended even to the aspects of nature that we might find unpleasant
Right.
or even, ugly. For example, Marcus Aurelius wrote about finding beauty in the lion's wrinkled brow and the foam from a boar's mouth.
Wow.
He argued that even these elements,
Yeah.
when viewed, within the context of the whole, they contribute to the overall harmony and beauty of the natural world.
It's like saying that every part of nature, even the parts we might find difficult, have a role to play in the grand scheme of things.
Exactly. And learning to appreciate this interconnectedness, even in the face of imperfection, it's a core principle of Stoicism.
So it's not about ignoring the difficult or unpleasant aspects of life,
Right.
but about finding a way to see their place and purpose within a larger, ultimately meaningful system.
Yes, exactly. And that brings us back to the idea of philosophical salvation differing from the religious perspective. Do
Yeah.
you recall how we talked about that earlier?
Yes, I do. Religion promises salvation through faith in divine grace,
Yeah.
while philosophy emphasizes reason and self-reliance.
Right. And this difference highlights a core tension between philosophy and religion.
Okay.
For dogmatic theologians, philosophy can be seen as almost diabolical.
Diabolical.
Yeah.
That seems a bit extreme. Why would philosophy be viewed in such a negative light?
Well, the term diabolical in this context comes from the Greek word diabolos, which means the one who divides.
Yeah.
In Christian theology, the devil is seen as the force that separates us from God.
Ah, so philosophy with its emphasis on questioning and independent thought
Yeah.
could be seen as tempting us away from faith and divine authority.
Yeah,
Is that why it's considered diabolical by some?
precisely. It encourages us to think for ourselves, to challenge, received wisdom, and to seek truth through reason rather than relying solely on faith.
So in a sense, philosophy is diabolical because it empowers us to question, to explore, and to arrive at our own understanding of truth and morality.
Right.
It's about taking ownership of our beliefs and values.
You've got it. And this emphasis on critical thinking is what makes philosophy so relevant, even today,
Right.
thousands of years after the Stoics walked the earth.
That makes sense, but if philosophy is about seeking truth through reason, how does it deal with the, inherent uncertainty of life?
Right.
I mean, science can offer explanations for the physical world.
Yeah.
But what about those big, like, existential questions like, the meaning of life or the nature of consciousness?
That's where philosophy truly shines.
Mhm.
While it may not offer definitive answers,
Uh-huh.
it provides frameworks for grappling with these questions.
Okay.
It encourages us to explore different perspectives, to examine our own assumptions, and to, engage with complex ideas without the need for easy answers.
So it's not about finding simple solutions, but about embracing the process of inquiry itself.
Exactly.
Okay.
This process of questioning and seeking understanding is, for many philosophers, a key part of living a meaningful life.
Right.
It's about nurturing a sense of wonder, curiosity about the world and our place within it.
And that brings us back to the idea of salvation or wisdom that we discussed earlier.
Right.
It's not about reaching a final destination, but about embracing the journey of learning and self-discovery.
Absolutely. And this is where philosophy offers a truly empowering perspective.
Okay.
It tells us that we have the capacity to find peace, meaning, and even a form of salvation,
Uh-huh.
not through external forces,
Yeah.
but through our own efforts to understand, to question, and to live in accordance with our own reason and values.
This has been an incredible deep dive into the world of philosophy already.
Yeah.
But I have one final question. You mentioned that philosophy can help us overcome our fears, especially the fear of death.
Yeah.
But isn't that fear a natural part of the human experience? Is it truly possible to, like, conquer it completely?
That's a question philosophers have been wrestling with for centuries. While we may never fully eradicate the fear of death,
What?
philosophy can help us understand it, contextualize it, and perhaps even find a way to live in a way that minimizes its grip on our thoughts and actions.
So it's about finding a way to accept our mortality, not in a, passive or resigned way, but in a way that allows us to live more fully and authentically in the present moment.
Exactly. And that, I believe, is one of the most valuable gifts that philosophy can offer.
Yeah. But how do we even begin to apply these ancient philosophical ideas to our modern technology-driven world?
Right.
The Stoics, for instance, found solace in aligning themselves with the natural order.
Yeah.
But our lives today feel increasingly disconnected from those natural rhythms and cycles. We're constantly bombarded with information, stimulation, and demands on our attention.
Right.
It can feel impossible to find that sense of peace and connection the Stoics seem to cultivate so effortlessly.
That's a great point and a challenge many of us face today.
Right.
It's almost as if we've lost sight of theoria, that contemplative observation of nature.
Right.
The Stoics valued so highly. We're so busy, interacting with our screens, scrolling through endless feeds,
Yeah.
that we forget to look up at the stars
Right.
or feel the ground beneath our feet.
It's like we're trying to build our own, artificial cosmos
Yeah.
with technology as our guiding force,
Yeah.
but something feels fundamentally off.
Yeah.
Without that connection to something larger than ourselves, it's easy to get, caught up in the anxieties and pressures of everyday life.
Right.
We end up feeling fragmented, overwhelmed, and disconnected from both ourselves and the world around us.
Precisely. And that's where the real work of applying these ancient philosophies to our modern lives begins.
Okay.
It's about finding ways to bridge that gap, to reconnect with the sources of meaning that have sustained humans for centuries,
Right.
even in a world dominated by technology.
This deep dive has definitely given me a lot to think about.
Yeah,
It's amazing how these ideas from ancient Greece still resonate so strongly today.
it is.
They faced many of the same, fundamental questions about life, death, and meaning that we still wrestle with.
It's a testament to the enduring power of philosophy.
Yeah.
These thinkers offer valuable guidance as we navigate the complexities of our own lives,
Right.
no matter how different our world may seem from theirs.
So, to our listener, what has resonated most with you from our exploration today? What ideas sparked your curiosity or made you think differently about your own life?
And here's something to ponder as you continue your own philosophical journey.
Okay.
If finding our place within the natural order was central to the Stoic worldview, how do we redefine that concept in a world increasingly shaped by technology and artificial intelligence?
That's a fantastic question to leave our listener with. Until next time, keep diving deep and exploring the world of ideas. You never know what treasures you might find.
Yeah, it really is a question worth, exploring further. The Stoics, they found peace by understanding their place in the natural order. But what happens when, our world is increasingly shaped by these artificial systems and digital landscapes? It's a dilemma Ferry tackles head on in his book.
He does. That's really interesting. It reminds me of something that we touched on earlier, the idea of philosophy being almost diabolical in the eyes of some religious thinkers.
Right.
You explain that it's because philosophy encourages us to question, to think for ourselves. It challenges traditional sources of authority like religious doctrines.
Exactly. And that diabolical aspect of philosophy, it might be even more relevant today as we navigate a world where, technology constantly challenges our assumptions about reality, truth, and even, what it means to be human.
Yeah, I see what you mean. We're constantly bombarded with information from all sides,
Right.
often with conflicting viewpoints and agendas.
Yeah.
It can be hard to know what to believe or who to trust.
That's where the philosophical toolkit comes in handy.
Okay.
Remember those 3 dimensions we discussed earlier?
Yes.
Theory that helps us analyze and understand the information we're consuming.
Right.
Ethics provides a framework for evaluating the moral implications of new technologies and ideas.
Okay.
And the pursuit of wisdom or salvation helps us to cultivate a sense of inner peace and resilience amidst all the chaos.
So instead of simply accepting the information we're given, philosophy encourages us to, like, engage with it critically, to
Yes.
question its sources, and consider its potential impact on ourselves and the world around us.
Precisely. It's about taking ownership of our beliefs and values
Right.
rather than simply adopting those handed down to us by, tradition or authority,
Right.
whether that's religious dogma or the latest social media trend.
That makes a lot of sense. But it also seems incredibly challenging, especially in a world where we're, constantly bombarded with information and distractions.
It is.
Did the Stoics have any, like, advice for dealing with this kind of, like, mental overload?
They did, and it's surprisingly relevant to our modern lives. One of the key Stoic practices was theoria,
Right.
which we talked about earlier. It involved, consciously setting aside time for contemplation,
Hmm.
reflection on nature and the workings of the universe. They believed that this practice, it helped cultivate a sense of inner peace and clarity, even amidst the chaos of daily life.
So even though they lived in a world, very different from ours,
Yeah.
the Stoics recognized the importance of creating space
Yeah.
for reflection and contemplation,
Mm.
for disconnecting from the noise and distractions of the external world.
Hmm.
That seems incredibly valuable today when we're constantly connected to our devices and bombarded with information.
It is valuable, yeah. And it's a practice, we can all benefit from, whether we consider ourselves Stoics or not. It's about consciously creating space for stillness and reflection in our lives, for disconnecting from that constant stream of information, stimulation, and for reconnecting with, ourselves and the world around us on a deeper level.
Yeah, I like that, consciously creating space for stillness and reflection. It's a powerful idea. But it also makes me think about the tension between the Stoic emphasis on finding our place within the natural order
Mm-hmm.
and the reality of our increasingly artificial world.
Mm-hmm.
How do we reconcile those two things?
That's a great question, and it's one that Ferry explores in his book. He argues that even though, our world is increasingly shaped by technology,
Right.
we are still fundamentally part of nature. We are biological beings
Mm.
with a deep connection to the natural world, even if we spend most of our days in, concrete jumbles and digital landscapes.
So it's about recognizing that even though our external environment may be increasingly artificial,
Yeah.
we still have an innate connection to nature, a connection that we need to nurture and cultivate if we want to find, true peace and fulfillment.
Exactly. And that might mean, making a conscious effort to spend more time in nature, to engage with the natural world in meaningful ways,
Right.
and to rediscover those practices of theoria that the Stoics found so beneficial.
So instead of trying to escape, like, our increasingly technological world, we need to find ways to, like, integrate the wisdom of the ancient philosophers into our modern lives.
Yes, it's about finding that balance, that harmony between the natural and the artificial, between the ancient and the modern.
Right.
It's about recognizing that even though our world is constantly changing,
Yeah.
the fundamental questions about how to live a good life, they remain the same.
That's a really empowering message.
Yeah.
It suggests that we don't have to choose between the wisdom of the past and the advancements of the present. We can find ways to integrate them, to create a way of life that honors both our ancient roots and our modern realities.
Precisely. And that, I think, is one of the most important insights that philosophy can offer us today.
Okay, so we've talked about the Stoics, their ideas about the cosmos, and how those ideas might be applied to our modern lives. But Ferry's book doesn't just focus on Stoicism, right?
Right.
He explores a whole range of philosophical perspectives on living a good life. What about some of the other philosophers he discusses? For example, I know he mentions Epicurus. What was his approach to happiness and fulfillment?
Epicurus. Now there's a philosopher who knew how to enjoy life,
Okay.
unlike the Stoics who focused on, accepting whatever fate throws at you. Epicurus believed that pleasure was the ultimate good.
Hold on. Pleasure. That sounds a bit hedonistic, doesn't it?
It might sound that way at first glance.
Okay.
But Epicurus, he had a much more nuanced view of pleasure than just indulging in every whim and desire.
Right.
For him, true pleasure meant living a life free from pain and anxiety.
So not just like physical pleasure, but mental and emotional well-being as well.
Exactly. Epicurus believed that true happiness, it came from living a simple, virtuous life,
Hmm.
surrounded by good friends and free from the pursuit of, material possessions or fleeting desires.
That's interesting. So even though he emphasized pleasure, he also believed in moderation and finding joy in simple things.
Yes, absolutely. He even had a garden where he would, gather with his friends to discuss philosophy and enjoy those simple pleasures of life, like good food, good company, good conversation.
That sounds lovely. So in a way, Epicurus was advocating for a life of mindful enjoyment,
Yes,
focused on appreciating the present moment and cultivating, meaningful relationships.
precisely. And he believed that by living in this way,
Yeah.
we could, minimize pain and anxiety,
Hmm.
achieve a state of lasting tranquility.
His philosophy sounds surprisingly relevant to our modern world where, so many people are struggling with stress, anxiety, and the constant pressure to achieve and acquire more.
It is relevant, yeah. Epicurus, he reminds us that true happiness, it doesn't come from chasing external things,
Right.
but from cultivating inner peace and finding joy in those simple things in life.
Okay. So we've got the Stoics, with their emphasis on finding our place in the cosmic order.
Right.
We've got Epicurus with his focus on cultivating inner peace and simple pleasures. What other perspectives does Ferry highlight in his book?
Well, he also delves into the philosophy of Aristotle, another giant of ancient Greek thought. And Aristotle's approach to living a good life was quite different from both the Stoics and Epicurus.
How so?
Aristotle believed that the ultimate goal of human life was eudaimonia, often translated as happiness or flourishing.
Okay.
But for Aristotle, eudaimonia, it wasn't just a feeling, it was a way of living.
A way of living. What did he mean by that?
Aristotle believed that humans, by nature, are rational beings,
Okay.
and that true happiness, it comes from living in accordance with our rational nature.
Yeah.
He believed we should strive to develop our virtues, to cultivate our intellect, and to engage in meaningful activities that utilize our unique human capacities.
So for Aristotle, living a good life meant striving for excellence in all aspects of our lives.
Yes, in a sense, he believed that by developing our virtues, by using our reason, and by engaging in activities that bring out the best in us,
Right.
we could achieve a state of true fulfillment.
That sounds a bit like the self-improvement movement today,
Right.
with its emphasis on personal growth and reaching our full potential.
There are definitely some parallels there,
Yeah.
but Aristotle's approach, it was much more than just self-improvement. It was about living a life that reflects our true nature as rational, social, and purpose-driven beings.
So for Aristotle, finding happiness wasn't just about feeling good.
Right.
It was about living a life that was meaningful, virtuous, and in accordance with our deepest human capacity.
Exactly. And he believed that by striving for this kind of excellence,
Mhm.
we could achieve a sense of lasting fulfillment and contribute to the well-being of our communities.
Yeah, it's amazing how these philosophers, despite living, thousands of years ago, they were grappling with the same fundamental questions about happiness, meaning, and purpose that we still face today.
It is remarkable, yeah. And their insights, they continue to offer us, valuable guidance as we navigate the complexities of our own lives.
It makes you wonder if they were alive today, what would they think of our modern world? How would they apply their philosophies to the challenges we face in the 21st century?
That's a fascinating question to consider. Imagine Socrates, strolling through Silicon Valley, challenging tech CEOs with his probing questions,
Uh-huh.
or Epicurus hosting a podcast on the art of living a simple, joyful life in a hyper-connected world.
Or Aristotle giving a TED Talk on the importance of cultivating virtue and excellence in the age of artificial intelligence.
Exactly. It's a thought-provoking exercise to imagine how these ancient thinkers would engage with our modern world. And it reminds us that even though our world is constantly changing, the fundamental questions about how to live a good life, they remain timeless.
So while we may not have all the answers, we can draw inspiration and guidance from the wisdom of these philosophers who've come before us.
Absolutely.
And by engaging with their ideas,
Yeah.
we can develop our own philosophies for navigating the complexities of our modern lives and finding our own paths to happiness and fulfillment. This deep dive has been incredibly insightful. I feel like I have a whole new appreciation for the relevance of philosophy in today's world.
Yeah.
It's not just about abstract theories and dusty old books.
Yeah.
It's about finding practical wisdom for living a better life.
It is, and as we continue to explore Ferry's book, I think you'll find even more insights that resonate with your own experiences and aspirations.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Now, for our listener, what has stood out to you the most from what we've discussed today? What ideas have sparked your curiosity or challenged your assumptions about the world?
And here's something to ponder as you reflect on our conversation. If Epicurus believed that true happiness comes from living a simple life, free from unnecessary desires, how might we apply that principle in a world that, constantly bombards us with messages of consumerism and the pursuit of material possessions?
That's a great question to leave our listener with. It's a reminder that even though our world is very different from that of ancient Greece,
Right.
the wisdom of these philosophers can still offer us valuable guidance as we navigate the challenges and opportunities of modern life.
Yeah, it really is fascinating to think about how those ancient philosophies could apply to our modern dilemmas. We've talked about finding our place in this tech-dominated world, the allure of simple pleasures in a consumerist society. I mean, there's so much to unpack.
There is, and that's precisely what makes Ferry's work so compelling. He doesn't just present these philosophies as historical artifacts.
Right.
He encourages us to engage with them as living ideas, relevant to our present struggles.
Earlier, you mentioned that the Stoics believed that even seemingly negative events had a place in the cosmic order.
That everything happens with a sort of like inherent justice, but honestly, that's a tough pill to swallow sometimes.
Yeah.
Especially when we see so much suffering and injustice in the world around us.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. It's a concept that can be, difficult to grasp, especially when faced with personal hardship or witnessing tragedies on a global scale.
Right.
But the Stoics, they weren't suggesting that we become, indifferent to suffering. Their focus was on recognizing what we can and cannot control.
So it's not about ignoring the pain or pretending it doesn't exist,
Right.
but rather about finding a way to navigate it without becoming completely overwhelmed by it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And for the Stoics, that meant, focusing on their own actions and responses. They believed that while we can't control external events, we can control our own thoughts, our emotions, our judgments.
That reminds me of something we discussed earlier, the idea that philosophy can help us overcome our fear of death. If we can learn to accept the things we can't control, maybe that includes, our own mortality.
Exactly. And that acceptance for the Stoics, it wasn't about resignation or giving up.
Mm-hmm.
It was about embracing life more fully, appreciating each moment without being, paralyzed by the fear of the inevitable.
It's a powerful idea, and it seems particularly relevant in today's world where we're often bombarded with messages that encourage us to fear, to worry, and to seek security and comfort at all costs.
It is a powerful idea, and it's a reminder that true peace and freedom, they come not from trying to control everything around us,
Right.
but from cultivating a sense of inner strength and resilience that allows us to face life's challenges with courage and grace.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Ferry's A Brief History of Thought, what key takeaway would you leave our listener with? What's the one thing you hope they'll remember from our conversation today?
I think the most important takeaway is that philosophy, it's not just an academic pursuit.
Right.
It's a living, breathing tradition
Yeah.
that offers us, profound insights into the human condition
Mm.
and practical tools for navigating those challenges of life.
Right.
You know, whether it's the Stoic emphasis on finding our place in the cosmic order,
Hmm.
Epicurus's focus on cultivating simple pleasures,
Yeah.
or Aristotle's call to strive for excellence in all things, these ancient philosophies, they have something to offer us today, no matter what our, our beliefs or backgrounds may be.
Beautifully put. And to our listener, what will you take away from this deep dive? What idea has resonated with you the most, or perhaps sparked a new curiosity?
Here's a final thought to ponder. We've talked about how philosophy can, help us live better lives, but what does a good life even mean in today's
Yeah,
world?
yeah.
What values should guide us? What goals should we strive for? These are questions each of us must answer for ourselves.
Right.
But philosophy can provide us with the tools and frameworks we need to approach these questions thoughtfully and arrive at answers that align with our deepest values and aspirations.
That's a great point to end on. As we navigate this complex, ever-changing world,
Yeah.
let's remember the wisdom of the philosophers who came before us. Let's engage with their ideas, challenge our own assumptions, and continue to seek out those timeless truths that can help us live more meaningful and fulfilling lives.
Hmm.
Until next time, keep diving deep and exploring the world of ideas. You never know what treasures you might find.